Good morning, everyone. My name is Janice Amiro, and I am the founder of Janice Inspiring Change Holistic Nutrition. Welcome to my weekly series, Health Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. And today I have a great guest on, Sarah Trask. And the reason I'm doing all of this is because in December, I felt that my followers, the people that enjoy hearing about what I'm up to and enjoy trying to get their health, trying to better themselves, better their health, and feel amazing, I thought it would be good to share with them something other than what I do so that they can grow and build their toolkit of resources to help themselves feel better. So I decided to start to chat with holistic practitioners and people in the wellness field so that you, the listener, could join in and learn some tips and tricks. So today I have Sarah Trask with me. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me today.
Thank you, Janice, for having me.
It's interesting. I met you, Sarah, not that long ago. We are both from Yarmouth, and but more recently, we realized that we know that I know your sister-in-law because I lived in Qatar, and your sister-in-law was my neighbor. So it's such a small world, and yeah, wow, it's crazy. So thanks again for joining me. Before we get started, Sarah, I just want to let people know a little bit about you. So I'm just going to introduce you with a short bio. Sarah's admiration for homeopathy was born when she saw a homeopath for a number of chronic health issues. After being completely cured of her chronic health issues, she continued to see a homeopath for treatment of acute illnesses and injuries, all with amazing success. From that time onwards, her faith in homeopathy was born. Sarah became a homeopathic doctor and is now she's dedicated to practicing the art of homeopathy with the goal of working towards restoring the health for patients in the most gentle, rapid, and permanent way. Wow, I'm so excited to talk to you and to learn more about what it is that you do and how you help people. And I think that we also want to talk about what is homeopathy. So that'll be a question I'll ask, but what I want to ask you first, and I do want to connect with us on Facebook, because if someone has a question, then I want to be able to get it, and I can't do that on Zoom. So I'll find us on Facebook here. And what my first question is for you, Sarah, is how long have you been in practice? And we already talked a little bit about in your bio about why you decided to become a homeopathic doctor, but what drew you to homeopathic medicine? Can you tell us about that?
Sure, yeah. I've been practicing in Wolfville for about 13 years now. I opened my practice downtown in 2008. As soon as I graduated, my husband and I moved back here. Sorry, what was the second question?
I wanted to know what drew you to homeopathic medicine.
I'm not sure. I think that's a layered question. I would say, as a child, I always had a curious nature, and I spent a lot of time watching my grandmother, who I very much admired, work with plants. And she used to give us mullein for our coughs, and honey, and just more natural remedies. But as through childhood and as a teenager, I suffered from a varied health complaints, chronic conditions that oftentimes I would just get antibiotics for, and they would come back. And I was on antibiotics probably 3 or 4 times a year throughout my early life. So I went to see a variety of practitioners when I first moved to Toronto. I actually worked for an NHL sport marketing firm right out of Acadia, and that was not my calling. But during my first year in Toronto, you know, there was a whole world that opened up to me in terms of alternative and holistic health. So I just went to everybody. I saw as many people as I could. And it wasn't until I saw my second homeopath, actually, that I was pretty blown away by the results. I remember coming out of that appointment that day with these little white pellets and feeling really different, like almost like my whole being had been just altered in a way. I felt health for the first time in a very long time. So, you know, I ended up going to school for homeopathic medicine and fell in love with it the first weekend I was there. I loved its congruence with nature. I love that, you know, we look at the body as a whole. I love the sort of investigative part of it. It's, you know, that's one of my passions. I remember when I was 18, my dad took us to Boston to go to a aptitude testing school. And they told him at the end of the 3 days of testing that I should be an international spy.
Oh my goodness.
And it was based on a number of aptitudes. I was either really, really low or non-existent in some aptitudes, and in other aptitudes, I was exceptionally high. And those were objective thinking and hand-eye coordination, which I don't think I use in homeopathy that often, except maybe when I'm mixing remedies. But also, you know, this ability to remember detail. And I remember my first weekend in homeopathic college feeling like it just settled in. I was quite, you know, I fell in love with it, really.
Wow. And so tell me a little bit about your, you know, you've been in Wolfville for a number of years, and have you worked anywhere else as a homeopath?
Yes. When I first moved here, I had a practice in Wolfville, one in Shelburne, one in Yarmouth, and in Hubbard. So it was just private practice in Yarmouth, Wolfville, and Shelburne. But interestingly enough, my second year in practice, there was a British physician on the South Shore in Hubbard, it's Dr. Jim McLean, just such a great guy. And he had been practicing there forever, and invited me to practice with him one day a week. And I would go down, and he referred, as a new homeopath just graduating, I wasn't expecting to see some of the pathologies that he would send my way. And, you know, anything from a cough or croup to stage 4 bladder cancer. There was a patient he sent me who you know, had gone through the whole series of conventional medical treatment and didn't want to do it again. So working with Dr. McLean was an incredible experience because I gained so much knowledge in the field of homeopathy, but I also got to see, you know, when you have conventional medicine work with homeopathy, the benefit to the patient is astronomical because, you know, you have the doctor with all of their knowledge, and then you have the homeopath that's working on a more holistic treatment plan for them. It was quite something. And I did that for about 4 years before I had my first baby.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
Dr. McLean doesn't work there anymore, so he's
Yes.
retired.
Yeah. A great experience for you. And
Very
I'm sure
good.
you learned so much there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we dig a little bit deeper, and I just want to say hi to some people. Hi, Linda, and Gwen and Michael are on the call.
Oh.
And so there's some people joining us. I think that it's worth asking because there are some people who there are people who don't know what homeopathy is, and there are people who kind of think they know, but they're not really sure. They have heard maybe their friends have seen a homeopath. So can you explain what exactly a homeopathic medicine is?
Sure. It's a form of natural medicine. Maybe I should start with how homeopathy was found. Dr. Samuel Hahnemann was the founder of homeopathy. He was a German physician who was investigating why cinchona bark was a cure for malaria. He had had malaria when he was in medical school, and so he remembered kind of what having malaria was like. And all of the textbooks that he had been reading at the time said cinchona bark cures malaria because it's a bitter. And he hypothesized this doesn't seem like there's much more bitter things in nature that don't cure malaria. What is it about cinchona bark that cures malaria? So he and some of his colleagues started doing tests on cinchona bark, and they actually ingested crude form cinchona bark and developed all of the symptoms of malaria. So he found that if you were to dilute a substance or take a substance that you were experiencing symptoms of that substance's toxicity, then you could actually cure the patient without any use of or without any risk of side effects if it's diluted down. So, over 200 years, there's over 4,000 remedies that have been proven, both in two ways. So the way we test a remedy, or we know the toxicology of it, is it's either ingested or there's research done on the poisonings, anything from plants to minerals, to even some nosodes, which are, whether it's tuberculosis, sputum, animal tissue. I know it's some poisons, it can get gross, but those remedies are diluted down to the point of infinitesimal doses. And I'll just give you an example. So if you were to say let's say you have acute diarrhea, okay? So you ate some bad mussels and you notice that you have, okay, so here's your immune system. Let's just use this as your immune system here. And let's say you have diarrhea. So your balance is off. And what would you do in conventional medicine? What would you take if you had diarrhea?
Anti-diarrheal.
Right. So you would take Imodium, right? So the Imodium would cause what's called a primary immune response, and it would kick you to the opposite side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then your body would then always initiate a counter response, which is called the secondary immune response. And that response brings you back to balance if it's an acute self-limiting disease, right? And if you're over here and you're being treated by a homeopath, I would say, what's your diarrhea like, Jess? And, I gather all the symptoms. So, it's urgent, it's green, your face is green at the same time, you're very chilly. So there's sort of this holistic pattern that you have developed in this diarrhea. And I would look in my repertory and I would find out what substance causes a similar kind of diarrhea in a toxic form.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were to receive that in a crude form, you would go this way because you're highly sensitive to it and you're already experiencing the symptoms of it. So that's why homeopathic remedies are diluted, and it's energy medicine. It's like mimicking what's going on in the body or holding a mirror up to the body. So if you're over here and I were to give you a substance like arsenicum, which is derived from arsenic, Health Canada wouldn't let me prescribe real arsenic. It's diluted down to the point, right? So I give it to you, and all of a sudden I'm tricking your body into thinking it's getting a little more of what it already has to kickstart the secondary immune response. So we bypass the primary immune response completely. Mm-hmm. So in essence, we're not just mirroring what's going on in the body, but we're teaching the body to work on its own using that secondary immune response.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I didn't think we'd be talking about diarrhea.
I know, it's just a fun one. I use it every day with my patients because, everybody thinks diarrhea is funny.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And in our line of work, these are the things that we
have to keep it funny.
That's right. Yeah. Something has to, get us excited and yeah. Okay, so that's a really good explanation. Ashley is on the call. Hi, Ashley. It's nice to see you. And Ashley's asking just where you can study homeopathy.
The Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine.
Okay. Yeah.
It's in Toronto. They used to have a distance learning program when I first started, probably back in 2010. I don't know if they have it anymore. And unfortunately, the dean of the school, who founded the school and was my dean and a dear friend, just passed away last week, Brian Mayer.
Oh,
He was a
wow.
lovely man, and I think the school has been sold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that can be found Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine in Toronto, and they can get all the information they need.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who are your clients, and what are the tangible benefits for them?
I treat everybody. There's really no limit to what I've seen in practice. I work with babies, pregnant women, the elderly, with a wide range of pathologies. I mean, anything from hives to cancer. It's really been all over the board. I would say in the last few years, I have probably seen and treated a lot more autoimmune disease, which, I also incorporate Lyme disease into that. So if I were to say I had a specialty, it would probably be there, but I love treating kids. I have tons of kids that I treat, and I don't spend a whole lot of time with acutes these days. It seems most of my clients are coming in for chronic issue treatment. Yeah.
And sadly, you mentioned children. Sadly, the rate of autoimmune disease in children is skyrocketing. And it's really quite scary to see what's happening to our children. And so it's no surprise that you're getting a lot of this. You're seeing a lot of this. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say in the last 5 years, I've seen a huge uptake or increase in Lyme disease, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, allergies, asthma. I mean, the list goes on. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's sad, but there is help
There is help. So on to your second question, the benefits to my patients have been great. I mean, and I'm not just saying that. It's just it's quite amazing to watch. Somebody come in who's really suffering, and see them get better and feel better. I mean, I've seen it with my own daughter. I don't know if you knew this, but my daughter was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease a few years ago, and it was quite devastating. And I found that through that experience, all of a sudden I was in the passenger seat.
Right.
And for a very long time, I was in the driver's seat for my patients. And I think that experience was not just humbling, but really taught me more than I ever thought I needed to know. Just in terms of how much we need a holistic, collaborative view in medicine. Yeah.
Right. And getting to that point, it's I think that's maybe I can get your take on this, because it's to me that's one of the biggest challenges we are facing now in our society is how we're addressing overall health with whoever, with all of us, and what's happening to people, and how what the support is, and maybe you can elaborate on that.
I think that there are many challenges, and maybe even too many challenges to touch on today. I think that we as a society have moved away from, really connecting, being connected to our bodies, being connected to our immune system, listening to our bodies. We're very caught up in this world of busy and that being something to admire. And we're very caught up in these cell phones where, we're not really connecting with people. And, we're using the television to fall asleep at night, and we're just constantly distracted. And I can say the same thing, I do, and I have used, and my children have taken pharmaceuticals in our lives, but I believe that the overuse of pharmaceutical medication isn't healthy, and causes an extra disconnect that I think is really at the detriment of people's health today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there's, I think as by and large, there's some type of disconnect with knowing, not so much understanding, but knowing that that we have within us the power to heal ourselves,
Well, exactly.
given the right food, the right remedies, the right support. And it's not always food or remedies. It's nurturing your body,
Mhm.
and allowing yourself, first of all, to feel,
Mhm.
because that is a lot of us are disconnected from how we feel. We numb ourselves to get through life. We're
Right.
on, all kinds of medication to not feel. So
Yes.
if we get back to feeling and nurturing ourselves from the inside out, then we are going to that wellness, that healing will come.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think it's so important that, as we move forward, that we start looking at medicine in a different way. I think that practitioners like yourself and Andréane, who we work with here as an herbalist, myself, osteopaths, I mean, there's so many brilliant doctors and alternative for complementary healthcare practitioners out there, really doing a lot in terms of listening to people and
Mhm.
looking at the uniqueness of how people are affected by different things.
Mhm.
I could use so many different examples right now, but no case of Lyme is the same. No case of asthma is the same. I think that my patients also receive so much benefit from being able to sit for 2 hours and have somebody listen to them and see them and
Mhm.
hear them, and hopefully piece together their own unique puzzle,
Mhm. And
right? And in conventional medicine, we often look at the body and such separated parts. The body and the mind are two different things. And in homeopathy, we look at the body, the mind, the spirit, the vital force, the energetic being. All of it has to be understood in order to find the right remedy.
that's right. And
Yeah.
when I took my, of course, what I do is encompasses what you've just said. And when I studied to become a holistic cancer coach, the instructor mentioned over and over the fact that we need to address, in typical conventional cancer treatments, we address the tumor is addressed. It's not the person, and it's completely the opposite for those of us in our field.
Mhm.
We're looking at the whole person,
Mhm.
not just the tumor or not just one system.
Mhm.
And speaking of that, Sarah, right now with what's happening, with everyone kind of living in fear and being so afraid to get sick right now, and we've been kind of in this situation for a year and a half or so. But what can you talk a little bit about keeping the immune system strong, and yeah, just touch on that a little bit if you would.
Right. Well, I mean, aside from just taking your constitutional homeopathic remedy, I think that having an understanding of where that fear is coming from is so important. Understanding that fear is a normal emotion, not suppressing that fear is also something that I think is part of the healing process and part of keeping your immune system strong. Most often, you know, I see people who suffer from anxiety. I mean, I think 40% of kids in the US have anxiety disorder.
Mhm.
It's alarming. But I think that that has obviously increased in the last year, with suicide rates. Just, you know, it's very, very sad what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think that in terms, the way you talk about fear, is that if we have an understanding of where our fear is coming from and we actually try to heal the fear, that can be really helpful.
Mhm.
And by that, I mean feeling your feelings.
Mhm.
So sitting with them, maybe not trying to analyze them, but allowing a space for them.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I think too, talking about our feelings, because that's something that we've been often from a very young age. You
Yeah.
know, as children, you know, feelings didn't really matter. What do they know? They're only a child. Or being in a household where there is a lot of fear, but the adults don't realize what you know. Kids are like a sponge, so they take it all in, and if they're not allowed to express it, then they grow up with that sense of that's how they move through life. They don't express their feelings, and all of a sudden that turns into some type of substance abuse,
Right.
or medication, which is a form of substance abuse. And then again, they're not in touch with their feelings. So sitting with your feelings and whatever they are, and I think talking about them is really, really important. And you know what I find is when you do open up, you realize that there's a lot of people who feel the same way
Yeah.
and share the same concerns. So I think it's important to find your tribe and talk it over and get support from people, which is what we're trying to do in our holistic type of, each in our own individual way, is to support as much as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So how do you think that how are you as a homeopath helping people overcome these challenges that we're facing in our society today? How are you, what role are you playing?
Well, I think that on an individual level, you know, the way I treat my patients, with compassion and caring, I think is a huge part of what I do.
Mhm.
Just being present and creating a space for them to be able to share, because not everybody has that space. Not everybody is able to, you know, sit down and talk to their husband about their fears or their pain or any
Mhm.
of it. So, you know, I create a space for my patients. But, you know, I think it's, in terms of homeopathy, um, I think that if we, like what we're doing in our practice is creating this sort of collaborative effort. I really see people individually. Sorry. I don't know how to turn this off. There. I think
That's
I
all
got
right.
it.
That's the beauty of being live, Sarah.
I think I lost you. Yeah. Am I still? Oh,
Can you hear me?
I don't know what's happening. I'm really
I
bad.
can still hear you.
Let me see if I can allow. Sorry, Janice.
That's okay. Can you hear me though?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, yeah, your screen might just be in the background. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't know how to fix it. Sorry.
Heidi Trask says we can hear both of you. So there you
Thanks, Heidi.
and Gwen, is Gwen your mother?
She is, yeah.
Okay, she says we can hear you. So we're good. We're good. Yeah. So
No, but I think what we're trying to develop in our practice, and has always been a dream of mine, is to have a real collaboration with conventional medicine and our herbologist who has the office next door, myself, you, the holistic nutritionist, hoping to get a counselor in here. I think that, you know, we all have very, very wonderful tools in our abilities to help people, but not every tool is going to work for every person.
Mhm.
And also in saying that, sorry,
That's okay. It's your, I guess.
my phone's connected to my computer in some way, and I don't know how to turn it off. So I'm going to try to do it. I was just going to say, you know, that being said, I also feel like, you know, I said not everything is going to fit with each practitioner, but there's also something about looking at the body not just in a physical way.
Mhm.
You know, healing happens on various levels. It happens not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You know, we do have to address our fears and our traumas, and even, you know, our health history in terms of our family, mental and emotional things that have been handed down through generations. We also have to look at the energetic being, the environment that patient lives in, what conditions they've been brought up under, what conditions, what diet, you know, how sensitive they are. So, you know, healing really does have to happen in a multi-dimensional way.
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons that I wanted to do what I'm doing now, is to, you know, there's some people who have one aspect, they've addressed one aspect of their life, and they're getting some relief or seeing some progress. But by adding another level, they can get even further. So when you understand all the tools that you can go for, you can use, then you're going to have even more success. And that is, you know, those of us who have that toolkit are going to reach optimum health.
Well, I have a great example of that.
Okay, sure.
When I was pregnant with my daughter Lucy, she was breech, and I had the most amazing OBGYN, Farrell Nettie. She's amazing. And Dr. Rudd, I think, was in on the version. They had to turn her. So I asked if I could bring my friend who was a midwife and also a registered osteopath with me to the appointment, and Jen White. And so Jen did some osteopathic adjustments on my pelvis, and they turned Lucy very successfully. They said it was the only successful version they had that year.
Wow. Wow.
Sorry. So, yeah, I think that in collaboration with each other, it just works.
Yeah. And you had a healthy baby.
Very healthy baby.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And thanks to a number of doctors and my homeopath in Ontario and an energy worker in Slovenia, her autoimmune disorder is all but almost gone. So,
and that is so wonderful to hear.
Yeah,
So wonderful to hear. Yeah.
I think one thing we should remember is that even though we're told something isn't curable or that there's no hope, when she was sick, I actually had a friend give me this wonderful book by Bernie Siegel. It's called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And you know, it's about hope, and it's about knowing that there's, you know, even if you're told something, get a second opinion, go see a different practitioner, do some more, change your diet, see a homeopath, go for an osteopathic treatment. There's so many other options out there. It's not just one thing.
I think it's really sad that I think it's a criminal that someone can say there is no hope. I think it's criminal that to say that to someone, because there is always hope, and there is always hope. And I think for those of us who have some fight in us, if we hear that, we might say, like, I was told there was nothing that could be done about my condition. I felt like a door has been slammed in my face. Janice is lazy and just needs to exercise. Basically, end of story. But I had some fight in me and I fought back. But you know, when someone hears there's no hope, it can go the other direction. And then then there really is no hope because the person gives up. So I think it's a crime that we that anyone is allowed to say that. So
and I would say, you know, in terms of our collaborative environment, I would love to someday see, you know, whenever I have done, you know, outreach in the community where I've offered my services for free to, you know, the old age home down the street or the chronic pain clinic, or, you know, any person that walks in and says they can't afford to see me, I've often just taken that on. I would love to see a real collaboration with the government, where, you know, people do have a choice. People have a choice about what goes into their body. They have a choice about who fits well with their body, who's a good relationship as a physician, that there are multidisciplinary practitioners working together. That's kind of my dream, where, you know, everybody is sort of under the same umbrella and collaborating.
Yes, and that one person gets assessed by everyone. And this does happen a lot, you know, in Asia and India and those places where that person gets assessed by everyone, the whole team, and then they come up with the best plan for treatment. And how fortunate are those people who can be in a situation like that, where they have the knowledge from all of those practitioners making a plan to help them move forward and heal. So do you have the so in your business, you were saying that you help people from all different ages. So when you work with a client, do you see the client more than once, or is it one time and then kind of a follow-up to see how they're doing, or is it a succession of treatments that they need?
Well, it depends. You know, if I have a patient come in for instance, they come in for migraines, and I find a remedy for them. What happens is our initial appointment is 2 hours long. And so we do a full assessment of the family health history and their health history, and really focus in on their chief complaints. And then they'll leave that day with a remedy. The remedies are included in the appointment. And then 2 weeks later, they have a free phone-in, where, you know, I always use the phone-in. I didn't have that with my homeopath. When I first started seeing a homeopath, he just sort of gave me these little white pellets and sent me on my way, and I had all these questions. So what I decided to do when I opened my practice is, after the initial, is to always follow up over the phone. You know, we usually only need 10 minutes just to make sure the remedy is working. And if it isn't, we do a switch right at that point, because I don't want to wait a whole month without the patient not seeing some shift in their health. So after the 15-minute phone in, they'll come back and see me 2 weeks later. So it's about a month between the initial and the proper follow-up, which is anywhere from a half an hour to an hour. But, you know, it varies based on pathology. If I have somebody come in for a migraine and I get them the right remedy, and, you know, a month later they come in for the follow-up and they say my headaches are gone, then, you know, I just put a refill in my pickup box for them, and they just keep picking up their remedy, and they usually follow up every 6 months just for a general. But then I have patients who, you know, require a monthly follow-up schedule, where we're following whether it's an autoimmune disease or a chronic pain. And then I have some patients who will call and see me for an acute, you know, every 3 or 4 months. So, you know, they've got this cold or that food poisoning or a broken arm, or, I've had patients stay with me since I started my practice in 2008. And I probably get a call from them once a year, either for a refill or for an acute treatment. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So we're getting down to our time. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't talked about, Sarah?
Well, I would ask you, Janice, we haven't been in practice together for very long, but do you have any questions about homeopathy or how it works? Or do any of the listeners have any questions?
Um, Yeah, I don't see any questions here, but if anybody has any questions, they can fire them off. We did answer Ashley's question, and I think that was it. But I feel that for the benefit of anybody that I'm working with, if I feel that there's something that you can do, it's worth a conversation with you to see if you can speed up what's happening to them, or speed up the resolution of it, I should say. So I think that it's so important to understand, and I think I have a good understanding of what homeopathy is, that when there's a certain situation, like if I had someone who had Lyme disease, which I do work with a diet for Lyme disease, but I know that what you could offer would help even more. So that's a good example of collaboration for that person to see a speedier result. And and
really interesting with Lyme is that it presents so incredibly uniquely in each individual and goes misdiagnosed all the time. Based on those sort of chronicities. I remember years ago, I had a patient in Montreal with Lyme, and she had just found out, but she had had it her whole life. So it sort of moved through different chronicities. She had, when presented to me, she had chronic bronchitis, interstitial cystitis, hair loss, really severe hair loss, loss of appetite. She was losing a lot of weight, and lots and lots of anxiety and pain throughout her body. So when she presented to me, she had several diagnoses over the years of, you have chronic bronchitis and you have interstitial cystitis, and the treatments again were mostly antibiotics and sometimes nothing. And so in homeopathy, we piece together all of those unique parts of the Lyme disease. So we don't actually have any remedies for Lyme disease. We have remedies for the person. And so that looks in nature like the person is expressing their illness.
I see. Yeah.
So, you'll find that certain remedies have a tendency towards this type of cough, worse lying down at night, tightness in the chest, hair loss, especially on the front. She had especially lots of hair loss on the front of her head. Brain fog, inability to concentrate. She was a writer. And after, I forget what the first remedy was, but almost 99% of her complaints were gone within a week.
Wow. Wow. She must have kissed your feet.
She's still my patient. Let's just say that. We don't have to talk that often, because most often her remedy is her remedy. And she just, if she starts to peter back in her symptoms, she starts up with her remedy again. So,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, always my goal with my patients is to find the right remedy, teach them how to take it, educate them on how to, I always say you have to recognize that with any energy medicine, it's like your armor, right? And so things in your environment, if there's nothing going on and you're on vacation and your life is relaxed, you most likely won't need to take your remedy. But the more things that come and start knocking you down, the more you have to fight back with that force of the remedy. So keeping yourself strong in the face of what weakens you. So essentially what we try to do in homeopathy is reduce somebody's susceptibilities to what they're sensitive to.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think I have time for this question.
Yeah.
What about heavy metal toxicity?
Well, I mean, we deal with a lot of remedies in homeopathy in terms of heavy metal toxicity. I don't do chelation. I don't do any of that. But if, somebody has had aluminum toxicity or mercury toxicity or lead, of course, we look at the whole picture. We don't just give them homeopathic plumbum, which is lead, but we look at the whole picture. And, most of the time, I'm trying to think of I had a patient years ago who had asbestos poisoning, and it was one of the only times in my practice I had ever used this. So it's called tautopathy, but it's a form of homeopathy. It's kind of under the umbrella of homeopathy, but it's actually using the agent that poisoned the person.
Right.
So I actually, in that case, it was a very clear toxicity to asbestos. And the person had had severe reactions. And so I ordered homeopathic asbestos and it cured that patient.
Wow.
The patient was from Yarmouth, I think.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think that we have to have a longer conversation about heavy metal toxicity. So yeah, thank you. So we've got a few more minutes. Sarah, I know you have another appointment. So maybe what we can do to wrap up is to just let the viewers and the listeners know how they can get in touch with you. If they have any questions, what's the best way to contact you?
Sure. I'm very casual. You can call me 902-542-2317. My website, it's not interactive, but there's a video there about another form of sort of homeopathic physical treatment that I do for athletic injuries, overuse injuries, plantar fasciitis. You can watch that if you're interested in the pattern reflection technique, PRT. Also, you can get in touch with me via email. It's Sarah, SARAHTRASK .homeo @gmail.com. My website is www.sarahtrask.com.
Okay. Great.
Well, Jan, thank you so much. I think what you're doing with these podcasts is wonderful. It's a great way to see what other people are doing and to connect, even though it's been hard to connect through COVID. It's a nice personal touch to get to know what other practitioners are doing in the community. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your hectic schedule to join me today and share what you do with the viewers. So we'll sign off. And again, I'm Janice Miro, and I'm the founder of Janice Inspiring Change Holistic Nutrition. I can be reached on Facebook or by email, janice@janiceinspiringchange.com. My website is janiceinspiringchange.com. And I will see you next week. And Sarah, I'll see you soon. Take good care.
Yes, that was fun. You take care too.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.